Hi, it's me, Auntie Corey. I have a book with a Disney princess, and her name is Pocahontas. Did you know that this lady, she has, just a fake story. It's not a real story, but she's based on a person that really existed. And the person that she really was lived a long time ago, like 500 years or more. And her story is sort of a sad one, and it's got a lot of grown-up stuff, violence and fighting and sad things. And so that's something more for older kids when they learn history. But there's still good lessons that we can learn from it if we just talk about the basic stuff. Some of the basic stuff is that she was a young girl, not quite as young as you, but definitely younger than Auntie Corey. And she lived in Virginia, which is, if you drove a couple hours in your car south, you'd hit Virginia. But 500 years ago, people that looked like you and me, that have light white colored skin like this, they didn't live in this area. They lived across the ocean in Europe and England. And so once they realized there was land over here, they started sending people in boats to come and see if there was any good stuff. Treasure, new foods, nice places to build a house, stuff like that. And the people who already lived here look like our friend Pocahontas. They had darker skin, and they lived differently than us. They lived in huts or teepees. They were more interested in nature and respecting nature, keeping it clean and not littering, being kind to each other, stuff like that. And the lesson that I like about a book like this is that it reminds us it doesn't matter if you have light skin or dark skin, you can still be friends. And also, just because you have light skin doesn't mean you're a good person. And just because your skin is a little darker doesn't mean you're a bad person. There are nice people and mean people no matter what your color skin is. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But for a long time, people with the light color skin, they thought that was the best way to be and the only way to be. But we know that's not true. So when they came over here from England, they weren't that nice to Pocahontas and her friends and family because they looked different. And that's just not right. We know that. You should be kind to everyone no matter what they look like. And that's the important part I like to take away from a story like Pocahontas. It also has some cute stuff. If you watch the movie, she has this little, I don't know if you can see him, this tiny little bird friend. He's a hummingbird. Your Grammy loves hummingbirds. And this raccoon, his name is Miko. So if you want, I will read this story to you. And I'm not going to read every single part because some of it makes me sad. It talks about guns and people getting hurt and fighting. But I like the stuff about being brave and caring for friends. And I like the stuff about respecting the environment. So let's take a look at this book, Pocahontas. And remember, it's based on a real lady. Her name was not actually Pocahontas. I don't remember what it was called. But her people that lived here, they were already in America. So we call them indigenous Americans. And that means they were born here. They didn't come from England or Europe or someplace else. If you're indigenous, you came from that place. You were born there. So she and her indigenous American friends and family live in a tribe. And they spoke another language than us called Algonquin. And so when these two met, they couldn't communicate very well because they spoke two different languages, and they had to learn each other's language, and that really happened. What else? Well, let's just get to the story. Okay, Pocahontas. There she is. So this is the voice of this tree that has a spirit in it. This is her grandmother who died, but she believes the grandmother still lives in the tree and she can hear her voice, and she gives her wise messages of love and advice. There's a little rabbit. Oh, and there's Miko the raccoon. So Grandmother Willow, which is this tree, she's saying, Listen to the voice of the wind as it tells the story of Pocohontas, the daughter of Chief Powhatan. I forgot, she lived in the Powhatan tribe. That's why he was called Chief Powhatan. I remember now. Pocahontas loved the land and the many spirits that lived in the animals and the trees and the wind. One day, Pocahontas visited Grandmother Willow, a wise old tree spirit. Grandmother Willow, my father wants me to get married to the warrior named Kokum, Pocahontas told her. But Kokum is so serious, and lately I've been dreaming of a strange dream about spinning arrows. Pocahontas, well, her real name was an indigenous word that meant playful one. And the story goes that in real life, she liked to do cartwheels all over the place. And so her family called her Playful One. So Grandmother Willow knew there was great wisdom to be found in dreams. It is pointing you down your path, she told Pocahontas. These pages are stuck together. There we go. But how do I find my path? Pocahontas wondered. If you listen with your heart, you will understand, Grandmother Willow replied. The spirits that live in all things will guide you. So Pocahontas listened to the wind and climbed Grandmother Willow's strong branches to the top of the tree. Up in the distance, she saw some very strange-looking clouds. The indigenous people 500 years ago had never seen ships or white people, and so they didn't know what they were seeing when these ships arrived on their beach. But those weren't clouds. They were the white sails of a ship bringing men from England to this new world in search of gold. As soon as the boat touched the shore, a man named John Smith climbed a tree to see the wild land. He wanted to get a better view. He came face to face with Pocahontas's raccoon friend, Meeko. He had never seen a raccoon before. They didn't have them in England. Well, you're a strange-looking fellow, John Smith said. You can see Pocahontas peeking, but he doesn't see her. John Smith had a feeling someone else was also nearby, so he hid and watched. Soon Pocahontas came into his view. She was a beautiful woman. But when she saw him, she ran to her boat, quick as a deer. She was afraid of a new-looking person. John ran after her. There's her canoe. Please don't go. I don't mean to hurt you, Smith called after her. Pocahontas could not understand the words of the strange man. It was in a different language than hers. But the sound that Grandmother Willow's words echoed in her mind. So Pocahontas listened to her heart, and she understood. She saw that John Smith was a kind person. Ooh, these looks like some bad guys. Now remember, just because somebody is fat or ugly doesn't mean that they're bad. But sometimes, in Disney especially, they seem to be. I mean, look at Auntie Corey. I'm fat, but I am gorgeous, and I'm a good guy. Well, I'm a good gal. Anyway, back to the story. While Pocahontas and John Smith became friends, the men who came over on the ship with John and Pocahontas's tribe were becoming enemies. Pocahontas's friends and family watched from the shadows as the new strange men chopped down their trees and tore up the beautiful land. They were taking the wood and ruining the environment. Greedy Governor Ratcliffe, that's this guy. Oh, and you can see Pocahontas's friends over here taking a peek and saying, wow, these guys aren't good. Governor Ratcliffe urged the settlers to dig faster. That's what these guys are called when they come to settle down and build a new home in a new place. They're settlers. He wanted gold. Then Ratcliffe's dog, Percy, spotted. Now, this word says Indians. This is a word that we used to call indigenous people, but it's not the most respectful word that we can use. So calling them indigenous instead of Indians is a much nicer word, so we're going to say that. He spotted the indigenous people and he yelped, "Yeep! It's an ambush!" shrieked Ratcliffe when he saw the strange men in their strange buckskin outfits. Musket fire, that's guns. Scary. It echoed through the woods like deadly thunder. A young warrior dropped to the ground as his leg had gotten hurt. "Namontack!" Who's this guy? Kokum cried as he rushed to the rescue of his friend. "Bring Namontack back to the village," Kokum commanded. "He needs help." Kokum carried his friend home. The medicine man, who is like a doctor of the indigenous people, he had never seen a wound like Namontack's. They had never seen guns. Chief Powhatan, the guy in charge, and he's also Pocahontas' dad, he was so angry. "These beasts invade our shores, destroy our land, and hurt our people." He told Kokum to send messengers to all the other villages. "We must fight these dangerous strangers together," Powhatan told his people. Off in the woods, Pocahontas was talking to her new friend, John Smith. Meeko the raccoon was searching Smith's pouch for some treats, but grabbed his compass. Do you know what a compass is? It's a little metal circle that says north, south, east, west on it, and it's got a needle on it that goes back and forth in accordance to the magnets of the earth, and it'll always point north. So that way if you're lost, you know which way to go. And so that's what he's got in his mouth, is a compass. "What is that?" Pocahontas asked as Meeko ran off with the compass. "It tells you how to find your way when you are lost," John told her. "Meeko can keep it. I will just buy another compass when I go back to London." "London? Is that your village?" Pocahontas asked. John tried to explain about cities and how his people lived in a different kind of house, and they had roads. He thought it was the right way. He did not know that it wasn't the only way. Pocahontas knew the woods around them were more beautiful than any city could ever be. Look at all these trees. So she showed John Smith her world and told him how she and her people felt connected to the earth. Pocahontas even took Smith to see Grandmother Willow. Smith was stunned. "One look at this place and the men will forget all about digging for gold. The nature is so beautiful here in the forest." "What is gold?" Pocahontas asked. Smith showed her a shiny gold coin. "Well, there's nothing that looks like that around here," Pocahontas said, shaking her head. "I don't know why they're looking for it here." John tried to tell this to Ratcliffe. The greedy man wouldn't listen. "These people have gold, and I know they'll do anything to keep it. I'm sure of it," Ratcliffe shouted. "There isn't any gold here," said John. "Lies, lies," Ratcliffe raged. "We'll get our gold, even if we have to steal it." In Powhatan's village, the braves, that means the warriors, the braves were just as eager to fight for their land. "But we don't have to fight," Pocahontas told her father. "There's got to be a better way. We should try talking to solve our problems instead of fighting." "But it is clear that the strangers do not want to talk," replied her father. "But if one of them did want to talk, would you listen?" Pocahontas persisted. Powhatan said, "Yes, I would talk to them." Ooh. That night in Grandmother Willow's glade, Pocahontas said to John, "Come with me and talk to my father." John shook his head. "No, once two sides want to fight, it's hard to stop people from fighting." "Sometimes the right path is not the easiest one," said Grandmother Willow. Oh, I didn't do her voice right. Sorry. Smith sighed. "All right, I will try." Pocahontas was so happy she gave John a smooch. Oh no. Meanwhile, a settler named Thomas was watching them. He had followed John Smith. Suddenly, Kokum burst out of the woods. He had followed Pocahontas. He thought John was attacking Pocahontas, so he attacked John. "Kokum, no!" Pocahontas cried, but Kokum charged at Smith. Frightened, Thomas fired his musket and Kokum fell down. "Thomas, run!" John Smith said. As the warriors swarmed into the glade, Thomas fled. They captured John Smith and took him back to the village. "At sunrise, we're going to push this guy over the cliff," said Chief Powhatan. Pocahontas went to Grandmother Willow. "I thought my dream led me to my friend John Smith, but now he's going to die. I feel so lost." This is really scary stuff. Just then, Meeko the raccoon dropped a round metal object into Pocahontas' hands. Through her tears, Pocahontas looked at John Smith's compass. The needle moved back and forth. "It's the spinning arrow," she whispered to herself. Grandmother Willow smiled. "The arrow from your dream. It shows you your path. Let the spirits of the earth guide you so you know the right thing to do." Pocahontas ran fast like the wind. At dawn, she reached the cliff where her father was about to carry out the sentence on John Smith and push him over the cliff. She threw herself across Smith's body to protect it. "You can't do this. I will protect him. He is my friend," said Pocahontas. "Look around you. This is where a path of hatred has brought us. Instead, we should all be kind to each other." Two armies stood ready to fight. These guys and these guys. The settlers clutched their musket guns. The warriors pulled the bowstrings on their bow and arrows. "I love my friend," Pocahontas declared. "This is the path I choose, Father. Friendship. What will your choice be?" Chief Powhatan dropped his weapon. "If there is to be more violence, it will not start with me," he said. "We must make peace." The settlers lowered their guns too. "Now is our chance," the evil Ratcliffe commanded. "Attack them!" But none of the settlers would attack. So Ratcliffe grabbed a musket and aimed at Chief Powhatan. "No!" John Smith cried as he leaped between the bullet and Chief Powhatan to protect him as well. Smith was injured, but he was going to be okay. He was going to go back to England to see his doctor and get his wound treated. Ratcliffe would be returning to England too, but in chains. He was going to go to jail. Pocahontas stayed behind and did not go with her friend. Her place was here with her people and her family. "I am needed here," she told John. "I will miss you, though." "Wherever I am," John said, "I'll always be with you in your heart." Pocahontas turned her face up to the sky. She did not cry, even though she would miss her friend. She knew that they would always be together in their hearts. The end. So that's a very short summary of Disney's version of Pocahontas. If you want to learn more about the real Pocahontas, we can do that sometime. There aren't any pictures of her because it was so long ago that there weren't cameras, but there are a couple paintings. She was really interesting, as are a lot of the stories about the native people here and the history between the settlers that came over and them. And a lot of it's really sad and kind of a bummer. So I recommend, having a chaser with this, and maybe something fun like Minnie or, rainbows. Anyway, that's all. I'm glad you've recognized that this girl is Pocahontas. Anytime you see her in the Disney princess stuff, tell her hi from me. I love you. Bye.